You call that radio?
Makes coherent sense.
It's You Call That Radio. We are going live with Darren McGarvey, who is about to release his last ever album, not funded by Creative Scotland. I think we can go to him now. Oh, it's Team Loki. We've got Becky Wallace in the house as well. How you doing?
Hi.
We're good, mate. How are you?
Good.
I'm well. Oh, so. But it's Christmas, so that's good, isn't it?
I think it's good.
I'll get there.
Is it? Do you like a Christmas, Becky?
I'm a big baby when it comes to Christmas. I'm all about the cheer and goodwill and looking after all the lost boys. That's my vibe.
Yeah.
Quite happy.
Well, it's not. Well, I'm in a flat I'm just living on a flat in Moan just now. No, I didn't think the Christmas tree was necessary just for me.
No,
But
man.
Yeah, it's good to see some tinsel in the background. Christmas is a thing.
Christmas is all over this house. It's horrific. By the way, I've not Yoko Ono'd this. Darren asked me to come.
No, I invite Becky on because she's been central to the whole process of this album in terms of the recording and a lot of the other stuff that's going on around the marketing and the vinyl and stuff like that. So I thought it'd be good just to get she might have some interesting things to say. A wee sniff of the Waldo, yeah.
I don't know what that means, but I'm sure I agree with you. We're going to talk about the last ever album. It's where I've got the graphic here. I believe is it Marcus Hislop that done that work? It
is, yeah, and he's my go-to guy now for the last few years in terms of just quick turnaround, always got great ideas, and he just always knocks it out the park for us.
Absolutely. In fact, Marcus did our You Call That Radio logo very quickly, as you can see there. That's the Tories Gasoline Company is his Facebook business page if you want to show support or get some graphic designs. I'm sure he's got a sale on. It's Christmas time with paintings for sale if you want to get something for that.
Yeah, he's so good, man. We've got so much stuff off him over the years.
Why is this the last album?
Well, it's the last Loki album. And that's really just, I mean, to be honest, it's just, I'm at a point in my own life where there are certain headspaces that are no good for me to get into. And when I get into a Loki headspace, it's a very specific set of skills that I'm drawing on. And I decided kind of a few months back, just, I need to try and not get myself into conflict so much, especially in the public arena. And Loki's one of the main vehicles historically in my life for doing that. So really it was kind of, for me, just on a personal level, it was trying to open up a new frontier creatively where I don't necessarily need to consider the politics of a hip-hop scene, the expectations of a hip-hop scene, where do I fit in a hip-hop scene, because it gets less and less authentic as I get older and longer in my recovery. But the issue around Creative Scotland, I thought, provided a good muse for a final album, because I think the Loki material always comes more alive when there's a target. Well,
that was going to be my next question. Why are you attacking Creative Scotland? If I was going to actually confirm, I was assuming that you were attacking Creative Scotland because I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Are you attacking Creative Scotland and why?
No, really, it's just using creative. They're not funded by Creative Scotland as a kind of provocative hook for people. But the album, obviously, as you've heard, it's really a commentary on how people from working class backgrounds and artists from working class backgrounds can feel that they have they exist on the outside of that sensibility and house style and those cultural networks and connections. And also it makes allusions in the beginning to me and my issues with the arts, but as the album expands, really you see that what I'm talking about is hip hop. I'm talking about the hip hop scene, the impact it's had on me, and the fact that the hip hop's never been formally supported as an art form in Scotland. So the title's got a lot of different meanings depending on how you listen.
Unless it's supported because it's in vogue, because like there's this kind of like movement to support hip hop now, which has come for like years and years of a kind of backlash, but it's more because the cultural kind of literati are like aware that it's in vogue to support urban music, or it's in vogue to support working class music. So yeah, it's a weird one. And then I'll shut up about Creative Scotland for now.
No, I mean, it's fine. I mean, there's a lot. One of the things I wanted to do, Mark, was I know that even for some artists, just even signalling public support for this album is a political minefield in their mind, because a lot of artists have got funding bids ongoing. A lot of artists are involved in Creative Scotland. So really, by calling it not funded by Creative Scotland, then you're creating, you're taking it just out of music. You're making people sit and consider, why am I listening to something that I think is good, but I can't say publicly that I think it's good? Or if it happens to appear on the Say Awards judging panel, what sort of questions will it raise in the minds of judges?
Do you think that's going to happen?
I don't know. I mean,
I think it will have to get. I mean, yeah, it has to get considered if it's out there between a certain date and it's viable. I don't know. I'm definitely going to put it in for Darren and see what happens.
I was thinking really about expanding it, because obviously it's the final album, but there's no timeline on all the ways that I can spin it out. You know, there's all sorts of things I can do. I can do sketches. I can do like mini documentaries, filling out Creative Scotland forms, and really draw attention to aspects of the arts and the process, leveraging my profile in other areas to kind of pull focus onto that stuff. So I've got ideas rattling around, but really I'm putting the kind of first version of the album out. It'll be followed by a director's cut, which is an expanded version in the vinyl. And then really I'll gauge the responses or lack thereof. And then that'll dictate the direction that the project might take then. But it's definitely more than just music.
So do you think, should we just clarify, it's not funded by Creative Scotland?
No, it's funded by Darren McGarvey, like every other thing that I do apart from books and TV work. And actually, you know, there is something to be said for artists like ourselves, Mark, who have a fan base, who are able to sell records, who have toured around and been around, and done a lot of it off our own backs, and taking the risk of being seen to fail in a way that is not really possible if you're indemnified for failure by Creative Scotland backing. And that's not a diss to anybody who gets public funding. I support public funding. I've campaigned for increased public funding. But also it's sometimes it bothers me, maybe in an egotistical sense, it bothers me when there's artists cutting about and they want to be in the same conversation as other artists when we're in two totally different tracks. Do you know what I mean? Like when you don't have access to that network, then you're having to do a lot more graft, and you're having to take a lot more risks, and you're learning a lot more, to be fair as well.
Well, I've never had any Creative Scotland funding, but I've never filled out a form. However, I did apply for the British Arts Council funding earlier this year to try and do a Mexico-Scotland swap. So we set the connections up and we didn't get it. So because I filled out the form, well, actually, somebody else filled out the form and we didn't get it. So because of that, now I can say it's all cliques. They're all bastards. Because I always thought to myself, look, because I hated them for a while. I felt like I wasn't part of the gang. But then I was like, you've never filled out a form. And now I have filled out the form. And I got the knockback. One form, one knockback. I hate them all.
Aye.
No,
that's how I used to feel too. But I think that in the music wing of Creative Scotland, genuinely think this, there's been a lot of reform and there's been a lot of goodwill from good people. Because, I mean, people like Steg G advising that wing, do you know what I mean? And like people that are genuinely underground and like want things to change. And the head of that, the head of the music wing, Jamie, he means it, you know, and he wants to make it more accessible, and I believe that. But you can also see across the whole company that is not how it is all the way.
And also, the other thing is, as an activist and a campaigner, I'm aware of the role that I should play in the dynamic. It's no for me to go into Creative Scotland and talk things through. I've got a profile where I can leverage a wee bit of eyes and pressure on them, now and again, and have done since, 2016, 2017 in different ways. And that's a traditional role that certain artists always play in this kind of dynamic. So I'm it's less about me having powerful, strong feelings against Creative Scotland and more about me observing the landscape and going, here is a way that my art at this age in my life can still have a function in our culture. And so once the idea came together, the rest of the album I knocked out pretty quickly. I must have knocked out 5 or 6 tunes right in the last furlong of this process. It's some of the best stuff I've wrote because I just had that clarity of thought because the target was clear. Do you know what I mean?
And it's a kind of a metaphor for all of that kind of the Scottish culture in it.
Yeah.
Because you have the burden of being a poet.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
I seen you having a pop at the Poets the other day. How do you remember all your lyrics? Because I'm not lazy like the Poets. You just won't let that beef with the Page Poets go, will you?
No, I can't because it's too much an opportunity to be petty.
It's a 4 lines in the lat.
It's lazy, isn't it?
Fucking sort it.
I'm amazed that people are so amazed that we can remember all lyrics because it shows a complete lack of understanding of the utter dedication to the craft of rapping that we have. And that so really that's what I'm alluding to when I say that about the Page Poets, because it's not that hard to memorize stuff, and I don't mind them reading out their books, but it's like don't overstate how hard it is to memorize a quite short, sparse collection of words. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's
and the poems are shorter than the raps. I mean, some of these
say in each word as well. It's not like you don't have to come in on the beat with the rap. It's like you can be like,
I'm a lazy poet. I can't be arsed learning my shit. Shit.
And I'll repeat that line to make it seem more important. Shout out to Sam Small. That was always I always liked that one. But yeah, it's an interesting point that you said there. So I mean, there is going to be people who are going to listen to this album, enjoy it, and they'll be too scared to share it because they're worried that it could affect. Like, I don't see the Skinny or the List or certain people, music festivals that are relying on income from, and I suppose it's quite unusual. There's not many of us who are independent artists who do this as a career that don't have any funding.
Yeah.
So it's quite a dangerous thing you're doing. But because you've never had any funding and you've got your fan base already. Was there any concerns about doing it at all, or did you just think this is ideal? And I mean, I remember you first floating this idea years ago. You were going to do a tour, then not funded by Creative Scotland tour, but I don't think that happened.
No, the idea has obviously been percolating for a while, and I think with this year there were certain controversies around Creative Scotland that caught my attention more so than others. In particular, just some certain groups within certain communities leveraging their minimal influence to try and stop or interfere with other people's work because they have different opinions about things. And without getting into that in too much depth, I've experienced that, and I was a kind of prototype for that back in 2016, where just some people just decided that I was dangerous, and then I lost a book deal. I was blacklisted by a lot of promoters, and generally the chat on the scene was that I was a kind of person who should be excluded. And since then, I've had various wee skirmishes, and words got back to me for people who work within Creative Scotland about them trying to set up a panel with me and academics to take me down because of my controversial opinions about Scots language and just wee things you hear. So I like the fact that if I announce I'm putting an album out called that, people there are going to hear about it, are going to talk about it. And that's a privileged position for an artist to be in. Do you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, if I wasn't so passionate about music, I would have gave it up because everything else I do is far more lucrative. But I use a lot of the proceeds for the other work that I do and invest heavily in my tour and my fringe and no, my actual fringe and in the music. Do you know what I mean? And so that's how serious I am about it.
So what you're basically saying is, once you've been cancelled once, you get used to it.
Well, the thing is,
there was a bad cancelling. That was a terrible one, and I remember that being an upsetting time. But would you say in general, when when it happens, these little skirmishes, does it bother you as much, or does it still get to you?
Well, it bothers me. What bothers me is that the people who try to do that to other artists, they're living off of public money, and I don't think that the public would be happy to know that they're subsidising not art. Most people accept we need to fund the arts, whether we like it or not, whether we agree with the principles of it or not. But trying to stop other people from earning a living while you yourself are drawing from the public purse, I think exhibits a sense of entitlement to public money that's really indicative of privilege. Ironically, the sort of privilege that certain people are always calling out and everybody else. I mean, to be quite frank, you've got a section of this art scene which is very middle class, university educated to a very high level, very sheltered. But because they've adopted certain narratives about their own vulnerability and fragility, and they wear them as badges, we're all supposed to believe they're no heavy posh. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not saying you can't go through hardship if you're posh, but see, when you're leveraging certain facets of your identity as being part of protected groups, but you're not talking about the truth of your class status and the privilege conferred upon you by being born into a family with a bought house and 2 motors and this, that, and the next thing, then you're not really into an intersectional analysis. Do you know what I mean? You're into a very selective, here are the parts of my story that I want to tell, and here are the parts of my story that I'm going to keep quiet because...
There's a narcissism in it as well, because there's just this assumption that action, 2016 I'm talking about, that the actions would be enough to silence Darren and make him disappear or stop creating art. Or like just this kind of idea that judgment is all-seeing and all-knowing, and then suddenly you've been kind of folded up and put away and dealt with as if you're like a problem to be solved, when you're just trying. I mean, the piece of work that was the root of all of that, we won't get into it because we don't want to start another cancellation.
No, I don't start it again.
The piece of work that was so creative and so thought out and just like genuinely meaningful and trying to like, you know, spark conversation. I certainly did that.
It's the high price you pay for making honest mistakes. You know, like a turn of phrase that maybe betrays a lack of understanding of what the most up-to-date way to talk about a certain sensitive topic is. So all of your intention, that gets forgotten about, and everybody focuses on a thing that they've decided is a red flag. And if you don't have the savvy of how to navigate social media, as I didn't back then because I had no experience, I was only moderately well known in certain circles, then I just made it worse with the way that I tried to deal with it. Because what I didn't understand back then was that when people like that decide to come after you, it doesn't matter how much you apologise, it doesn't matter how much you offer to reconcile or understand. They want complete submission, complete capitulation, and anything less than that they take as traumatizing. So you just end up really what you're dealing with in a way as a sort of collective personality disorder within a specific type of ideology. And it's weird because politically I align a lot with what people would call woke in terms of my beliefs and the way that I've tried to conduct myself in life. But there's a certain emotional signature that some of this activism has, which is a feature of it being done primarily online. And it is this sense that I will feel no consequences for my behaviour. So there are no constraints on my behaviour. And so, you know, with me, hopefully people learn that there are consequences. Do you know what I mean? Aye.
Yeah.
I think we're going to... The album is brilliant, man. I've been listening to it. It's a superb piece of work. I've got some snippets lined up. I didn't know if you were going to be all right with me playing full songs or whatever. Plus, it's a podcast. I don't want to play too much of it. We want people to go to the album launch on the 28th of December. Everybody there will get a download code, so you'll be the first to hear it by going to Ivory Blacks or pre-order the vinyl as well.
Yeah. You won't be able to hear the album. If you go on the 20th of December, you'll be the first people to hear the album. Won't be able to hear it for a good few weeks after that still. And you'll get it's not going to be on the streaming platforms. It's going to be
a secret
you know,
album, basically.
Basically, the idea is for the people who come to the launch and the people who've pre-ordered the vinyl, they're going to get a free download code for it on launch day. And then we want them to become part of a campaign to build anticipation for a general release. So it's happening in phases where we want to really, anybody who wants to take a plunge and support it up front in some way, we want to reward that by saying you get exclusive access to stuff before it goes out. Because to be honest, I'll tell you the truth, the people that I'm most interested in hearing what they think about this is the sort of people who have been listening to my music. It would be cool if Vic Galloway likes it, or Jim Galloway likes it, or some dickhead at the Skinny, you know, admits that they like it by mistake, whatever. But the truth is, you know, I'm when I'm writing a song, I'm thinking of like Gasp and Physics, or you, like sitting in your room listening for the first time and putting the faces on that I recognise and remember from back in the day when I knew I had wrote a fucking belter of a tune. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm not out in the scene as much now. I don't get that kind of immediate feedback. So it's took me a long time to create the album because I need to find a new way to decide if it's good or not. That's not based on the metrics, but there's nothing more a buzz than me than seeing in somebody I know's face, fucking hell, Darren, you've knocked this one out the park. Do you know what I mean? And that's always been my idea, to be honest.
Just wants to be a good rapper.
So I'd be a good rapper, mate. I just want to see it think I'm a good rapper.
Fuck the Orwell Prize. We just want a pat in the back for the scene.
Exactly.
Well, I think you're going to get that.
When it comes to that's what that whole book was actually about. Like the social distance between me and the scene.
Can we? Well, hopefully we'll get some instant validation just now. We've got people tuned in. I know that there's comments coming in. Sometimes I get distracted because now that I've started listening to the audio podcast after I do live streams, I'm going to go through the comments towards the end. So if people have got questions and stuff, I'll try and read them out. But we'll give the instant feedback to the song. I'm going to start with a snippet of Not Funded by Creative Scotland, which is the leads, which is the title track, obviously.
Yep.
You just want to give this a wee introduction.
Aye, man, like this was one that came really late in the day. I discovered the beat for this when we were on the train down south for some work I had done there. And then it sort of set off a chain reaction once I got a vibe. I thought that the song, the album starts quite tense, and I need a song to kind of create a bit of an opening in the music, just for a bit of that fun and laughter and comedy to come in. And that was the perfect vibe for it, man. So it's just like kind of Loki on steroids for people who listen to my shit.
Monster, please know it's not a corporate sponsor. When I'm taking DFs, I'm not talking concerts. Copycats knocked off of your roster. Isn't a syndrome, you're a proper imposter. Every call that's like I've been doing, I've been wrecking shops on and I haven't seen you. Woo! I know I wanna keep stone. For the record, I hear everybody in the green room. Sucker MCs, you can keep your head stone. Ain't a similarity between me and you. Heads up, here's a 2-minute warning. This is more than an audio recording. Background music, while you put your forms in. Not funded by Creative Scotland. Going out to my cultural orphans. Get your hands up to the sawn off shotgun. I love the smell of bureaucrats in the morning. Not funded by Creative Scotland. Shit, man, we're gonna need like a female on the hook or BBC introduction will never play it, man. Go get me a female. Right, okay, that's enough. Alright, Loki, mate, how's it going, man? Saw your telly show. Still doing alright, man? Mate, I'm on the 1st of December. I celebrate the end of, no, not November. Pick an artist to the underground, pick man off the charts. Bring him in and have his place raining body part.
Yes, not funded by Creative Scotland. Just a wee snippet. Absolute banger. Where did you get that beat from?
A lot of the production I purchased online. There's many different sites now where you can just deal directly with producers all around the world, and I've found that actually that is for me sometimes more convenient because I can just go like that. What is a vibe I'm looking for? I can go and do a dead specific search, and then really for me it's just a question of what is the quality of the beat. Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of the beats, sometimes, especially producers in their early days, they're putting their beats up there, but they're really over
They're
produced.
squashing it, man.
They're
Squashing the
overproduced.
beat.
So sometimes you just stumble across a wee gem and you're just like, this is pushing my system in all the right ways. And it just has character. You can tell the producers expressing themselves through the beat rather than just, a kind of paint by numbers, or here's a trap beat, here's a drill beat. And so once there's a few producers that reoccur on the album multiple times, and that's because the audio quality of their stuff was top tier, and also because the stuff had a unique character. Because I think my early stuff, like the first two albums, I think before the influence of other MCs in the scene and the influence of what then came to understand as underground hip hop, they were a bit more diverse musically because they reflected a lot of the music that I grew up around or my other interests before I became specifically a rapper. Do you know what I mean? So I thought it'd be good to go back to thinking in terms of what do I want to do rather than what do I think people would like to hear me rap on. Do you know what I mean? And so I think that's reflected in all the production.
I remember you saying once that you found an old lyric of yours, and you said it was like finding a cheat code.
Really, aye. In terms of just
I think it was just a wee throwaway thing you said, but you found like an old pad or an old lyric of yours, and you went, it's like finding a cheat code because you're finding your old self rhyming in a certain way. Was the older you an influence this? Because there's parts. I think a couple of people have told you this already, but there is parts where it feels like young Darren is there.
Yeah,
aye, and it's because I've found a way to bring the emotion out without needing alcohol to access it, and that's taken a long time. Because I still am quite an emotionally open person, but I have found that even if I'm feeling really, angry, sad, whatever the emotion is, there's something about sobriety where there's like a fucking glass ceiling on what I can actually express sometimes, which can be quite frustrating. But the key with this album was, one, realising what the target was, and then making the mould, and then pouring everything into the mould. So all the songs touch on the same themes, but for different perspectives and angles. And also, once I sort of realised this is not just a commentary on class and culture, this is a love letter to the hip hop community. And once that's really when the emotions started to come through, because, whatever people think of me or feel about me, and I know there'll be varied opinions based on what era of my life I interacted with you, but for me, I hold it dead close to my heart. Do you know what I mean? It's just it was the most profound transformative experience that I went through in my life at a time where I didn't know where I was going. I didn't have much. I was out on my own in the world at 18 years old. But this passion for rap and this scene where I could go and just be myself and be artistic and not get slagged like you do in schemes for being creative or dressing different, it gave me a quality of life that far exceeded materially what I had. And so, I felt like I've never really properly sat down and thought, how could I convey my gratitude to the whole community for that? And I think that was one of the big kind of artistic objectives of this album, was that everybody in the scene felt I was talking directly to them. Do you know what I mean? And saying thank you for everything. And now I'm getting emotional. There you go, look at that.
And it's going to be emotional at Ivory Blacks on the 28th of December. Your first ever venue, your first ever gig was there. Kelvin's still there. Shouts to Kelvin, by the way.
Kelvin really is just top class, man. When I got in touch with him, I thought, because obviously I could have done St. Luke's or something like that, do you know what I mean? But I like St. Luke's as a venue, and I like some of the people that I deal with there. But sometimes when I've been in there doing support slots, I've not liked the feeling you get. It's like suddenly, because you're doing a support slot, it's like I don't know, you're in economy class or something in terms of the level of service you get for the venue and the way that people talk to you. And it's not like I'm getting in terms of, look at me, I'm Darren McGarvey. I would say that about any support act. Do you know what I mean? And so I thought, do you know what, man? Somewhere I know where I would get a warm welcome would be Ivory Blacks. Let me give Kelvin a shout. And he was pure chuffed to hear from me, and was really kind of keen to do it. Do you know what I mean? So once we secured that kind of date in between Christmas and New Year, then that gave me a deadline. which then spurred on the creative process in the final kind of stages to get the songs finished. Obviously, Becky's been just such a big help, you know what I mean? Because we've got brains that are different for each other, and there are some things that I really struggle with that normally I outsource to other people, or I don't do at all because it's just too much to think about. And luckily, a lot of the things Becky is not only good at, but actually finds interesting because they're challenging. And so end up with a kind of good bit of creative chemistry going on where I feel supported in what I'm trying to do and feel challenged to get things done in a certain time frame. And basically, it's kind of, she's using me as a guinea pig for what she's got coming forward with her own
but
album.
also taking things seriously, do you know what I mean? Because, I mean, obviously, Darren, this music will all be available at some point, but Darren's done, 17 albums? They've all been free to access. Do you know what I mean? And it's not that this one won't be at some point, but just thinking of, well, you know, let's take this really seriously. Let's actually think about putting it up in certain ways. Let's think about staggering it. Just taking that kind of like the what a publisher would do for his book and putting that into what we should do for the music. Do you know what I mean? And obviously that's an area that I love because it's actually dead creative, you know, try to find out cool ways to do that and make things stick. And, you know, and it's fun doing it for somebody else. It's not fun doing it for yourself.
No, absolutely. There's a difference. There's a difference in the... Well, it's hard to do it for yourself. Absolutely. Yeah. But it's a no-brainer. I think it's a really good idea to do it this way because really the only downside of doing it this way is that it affects your Spotify streams. And Dan's never used Spotify anyway, you know, apart from the so it's not really going to affect your numbers.
Here's the thing, and I don't mean this as it comes across combative, right? Because I'm saying it. So some rappers will feel like it's a slight against them. Yeah. But your streaming numbers are an important metric to gauge the level of interest out there in what you do when all you need to do is pick up a phone and press play. I don't have streaming numbers that can compete with a load of the Scottish artists that are out there. But I can fill a venue with 400 people consistently, sometimes multiple times a year. And I see all the proceeds that come back from that. And that gets reinvested into my art for years and years and years. I've been doing that. So you don't see me posting all these big achievements every year because I'm just too busy in the process. It doesn't matter to me really if people know what I'm doing. I make a decent living off of all the different ways that I've diversified my hip hop and my rap, taking it into theatres, taking it into comedy clubs, where there's a different context. So the audience is primed in a different way than they are if you're just presenting them with a hip hop video where they already feel in some way superior to it. You do it in a theatre, it primes an audience in a different way because they think, if I don't get this, I'm no smart or I'm no sophisticated. So suddenly you've got them eating out of your palm and nobody questions the accent. Yeah. And so it's just like, and you know yourself, Mark, because you've been doing live gigs and putting on gigs and a promoter since before I even knew you. You were doing that. And it's a different game. Yeah. It's a different game when actually people are willing to get up, put their jacket on, travel to somewhere and pay money to watch you. And that doesn't mean a stream's worth less. But if you're not... I mean,
literally...
Well, a stream is worth less than that.
It literally is worth less.
It's worth 0.001 pence. And by the way, streams are all very good, but we can tell who's buying them, by the way. You're fooling nobody. Anybody with a brain knows. We can see
as well, man, like people say you can't make money from music anymore, and all right, you might not, us as artists might not be able to make millions, do you know what I mean? We can get our $5,000 for our 1 million streams, do you know what I mean? But it's nothing to live off. But actually, you can have a sustainable career in music. You can have a sustainable career as an artist, and it is graft. But if you put the work in, it is there. So with dance stuff, it's a no-brainer to do live shows. Do you know what I mean? Because people want to get that experience. They want to meet them. They want to come and see them. So, you know, and then we're doing all these silly wee things like making merch for home. Do you know what I mean? That we know we can take it out and sell. I bought a t-shirt printer. So we're printing t-shirts. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're just like, let's just economise it on this.
Have you got that new t-shirt close by? I did see a picture.
I made that myself.
She made it on the fly and presented it to me. She sent me to the shop, and when I came back, with the fucking bevy. She presented.
He wasn't going to get it if he didn't bring the bevy.
She presented the T-shirt, but it was great. Do you know what I mean? Just to see it, because it's one of the best things about the creative process. And I think for me, I've just been stuck for years with the music. You know, I was working with wee David, and 2017 to 2019, we did Petty Shit. I used his music in my first TV series, and we'd been talking about at the time, you know, like just kind of bringing him in to central to my whole creative process. And then with the tragedy of him passing the way that he did, and then you had the COVID pandemic, and just it was like everybody experienced different types of disruption to their life, you know, whatever your what area of life or family. And for me, the disruption was every time I felt I was ready to pull the trigger with a new album, something fundamentally happened to disrupt it. And I just lost confidence. But really, the germinal event of this project began when Sace got in touch with me to go into Riverside Studios to do a kind of film a live session in there. And that was the first time really I had contact or ability to preview music for somebody in a studio environment who knew me since I was a kid. And so I could tell straight away when I was playing him some of the stuff I was working on that he could see where I was going with it, but it wasn't hitting him the way I expected it to. And that's when I realised that I had almost written a full album and I'd tinkered with it so much that I had changed it so much that it was unrecognisable. So when I saw Sace give me the reaction that I wanted, suddenly I was like, let me play the original version of this. And when I started to play the songs in their original form, then he was like, fucking yes. And so that created a kind of impetus where I started to rebuild my confidence. And Becky's always been on at me, you know, when are you going to fucking do these tunes? When are you going to do that? When are you going to do that?
I'm just nagging him all the time. But what he does do is because he goes out the scene so much, then he thinks, all right, well, I better release a battle song because all your rappers are like, right, okay, well, I need to show everyone that I'm still the man. So you just get like battle EP after battle EP after battle EP. But since Trigger Warning, I think this is like a proper concept EP that's got a story from start to
album.
end. And album.
Yeah.
People are worried. They're worried they're going to get shortchanged.
30 quid, 3 songs. Deal with it.
Well, there was too many songs to fit in the vinyl, weren't there?
Aye, with the vinyl, really, I was just thinking of DJs. DJs want bangers. They want tunes that slap. And so I chose 10 tunes, the 10 kind of bangers on the album, and also added an exclusive track to the vinyl, which is not going to be on the first version of the album. It will be on the director's cut. Really just I've always been asked, am I going to put a vinyl out? And then it was Becky that just kind of spurred me on, because she was like, look, we'll be able to sell enough pre-orders to pay for it. And that made sense, more financial sense to me, because I've taken so many losses with the music early years, as always have, who fund it ourselves. I just wasn't prepared to do that again. But actually, it's looking like it's going to kind of maybe break even for once. But that's before you start adding in the shows and different versions of the material in different contexts. You know what I mean? But I think like the amount of interest I've seen in it already, I think it could shape up to be probably my most successful music project, which is a nice thing. Yeah. 20 years in,
and there's
you know
something
what I mean?
about like the physical, because obviously with CDs dying out, you know, there's a sense that people don't want that, or it's harder to kind of get rid of a physical artifact. But there is something about holding something in your hand. Do you know what I mean? That's exclusive to an artist. So I think it'll be cool, man. And there's only going to be limited copies as well. So once the vinyl's out there, you know, it's more of an incentive to go and get it, and then maybe after that, put it up on Spotify.
Maybe
Spotify. Because it's just the numbers. Like it's interesting watching news, because I've got the same album thing happening in March, and it's like if I put it all out in Spotify first, then the numbers are going to be great. And then, but if I put it in Bandcamp 2 months before, then everybody's going to listen to it and have downloaded it. But it's like, why do I give a shit about the numbers?
You shouldn't. You don't need to. We shouldn't. I mean? We shouldn't.
It's not like we've ever had great numbers anyway. But you know, the only time we had a single in January, Landfill Culture, that got 20,000 hits just organically, and that was quite a nice feeling. and then the follow-up single a couple of months ago, Steal My Sleep, get 2,000.
Aye.
And
That's
it's
still good numbers. I mean, it
Nice.
depends what your metric for, you know, what.
But I mean, but like you
listen
said,
is.
there's a difference. You know what's a banger and what's not. You know,
Aye.
the
You can
tune
get
is
somebody
deep.
as well.
Fast, that's 2 minutes long. People are going to like that.
There's
Steal My
also
Sleep-
the respect, mate. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that matters. Do you know what I mean? Like, the respect among musicians who know the script.
The respect.
It is, though.
Respect.
It's really important. It's important. Do you know what I mean? Like, the gyros are respected, and you're respected as a songwriter, as a musician, as somebody who enables other musicians, who's never been stingy with your platform, who's always been kind and generous to say, look, let's bring this into the mix. And like, you know, a person like you in a city's music scene is absolutely essential. But unfortunately, sometimes the price of being that person who actually lives it, do you know what I mean, is that there's big fluctuations and you experience,
Yeah.
you know,
the highs and the lows.
Highs and the
Aye,
lows,
aye,
man.
aye.
Yeah.
On a low just now, but but I'm old enough to realise that, you know, I was very lucky the last couple of years, and then it's just, if you're freelance and you're an independent musician, because I've been making a living off of music or in a sideways way podcast, and just when you add it all together, doing lots of different things, and I've been very lucky. But now I've had a
See
wee.
as well, man.
But that's because I put so much time. I put time and money into making the new Gyros album. So hopefully pre-sales come out in January, and hopefully people pre-order.
Oh,
And
they
then
will, man. They
It'll be
will.
an investment.
See, the other thing is, we're now in an economy that's named after what we've all been doing for 20 years. So now everybody else has to treat every job they do like a gig, and they get treated like freelancers. And we've got 20 years of experience of that shit. So we've actually got a head start in this world that's emerging in terms of there's no steady income. It is up and down. 1 minute your skills are sought after, the next minute you can get to fuck some other young pups coming in. And like, as much as it's shite, as it is shite, it's shiter for people who maybe thought that they were sitting pretty in the analogue world before, who haven't skilled up, who haven't had to fucking fill out invoices and file accounts and do all these pain in the arse things. It's still a pain in the arse to do it, but actually in a competitive marketplace, without using all the capitalist fucking jargon, then actually a lot of us that have been doing this a long time have already had a head start, and the fruits of that will bear at some point.
Yep. You kind of there is a generational shift as well. Do you know what I mean? I know it's boring chat, so it's not a lecture, but there is like a generational shift happening now. And that hard work you've put in means that you're the guy that people will go to when they need advice or they want to understand something, because you've paved that way. So I think it just depends if you're an artist or you just want to make money, and those are two different things. Do you know what I mean?
Very different. Very different. There's a million ways you could do it. You could advertise pube trimmers. That's a thing.
Oh, we've tried that. Yeah.
I've got a question for the people that are watching back home. For everyone watching, this is a question for you.
Hey, fancy another one?
Do you want another one?
Another one. Do you want another one?
Yeah,
Let us know in the
Davina,
comments.
I have to say.
She's cool.
Shout out to Davina. I think it's time for another one from the album. I've picked one that you've been playing this live a lot, and it's just probably one of the best tunes you've ever made. Just
Cheers, man.
a snippet. I felt wrong to snip this one, but I'm trying to keep everything to about a minute, under a minute for each song. So this is Travelling Circus. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Aye, man. I mean, really, that was the first tune where I started to kind of be able to access the feelings and emotions and what I might want to say about a record that was about more than, as Becky says, demonstrating lyrical fucking proficiency. Do you know what I mean? So there's still that attention to detail in the lyrics, but it's really about something, and it's about the transition that I've went through all these years as I've became kind of untethered for the scene and untethered for what was familiar, and received a bit of status. And while there's been perks involved in that, then there's also other downsides to it, which people will know about hearing other people complain about achieving moderate success. But I thought that it was a way for me to kind of start talking a wee bit about some of the things that I've experienced and the impacts, the transitions that I've gone through these last few years I've had, and then when I discovered the production for it, I think that was the icing on the cake, because it really does accentuate all the different vibes in the lyrics.
A new life with some old friends misconstrue my absence. This triggered hippocampus. It's a big hit on campus. With the middle classes, amygdalas into guerrilla tactics. Sleeping giant in the pit of Lazarus with paralysis. Drip as lit as Zippo gases spilled on linen canvas and ink with matches. Still use actress, think it's glamorous. Twitter addicts think it's madness when I jump out the timeline swinging ratchets. I picked up these machismo habits as a kid calling bingo for crypto fascists. I wonder what my kids will tell therapists about me. Was I patient, overbearing, scary and shouty? Did I make a public virtue out of life of doing selfless deeds to cover the fact I resented putting others ahead of my selfish needs? The plight of an author. Aye, you're right, I'm softer. I hope in it.
Audio's gone.
Yeah, I hate to cut it off, but you're just going to need to pre-order the album, guys. That's just a wee... It's a big hit on campus.
Yeah.
That's a good line.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Cheers. The thing as well, when a lot of these songs, they were different fragments of different things I was working on. People who follow everything that I put out, including demos and stuff like that, they'll see. They'll hear passages within the album that they might have heard before, and the reason for that is that there came a point where I was so kind of browbeaten and no confidence that I started using some of the material from the album for other things. And then once the idea of the album came into play, I was like, no, let me reassemble all this stuff the way it was originally intended, which was the really strong themes about class and touching on, you know, a lot of the contemporary discussion about masculinity being toxic, and the refrain that I return to lyrically with almost every track is, here's a bit of insight about why I might find you annoying, you fucking middle class cunt, right? Going on about your trauma all the time. Here's a normal day in my childhood, and now tell me about your fucking triggers. Do you know what I mean? And just, I know that sounds a bit kind of confrontational, but it's I think in the album what I'm trying to do is articulate something that maybe a lot of working class people who get irritated by what they hear is woke culture. I'm trying to say, I think this is why you're annoyed about it, and it's no because you don't like minorities. I think it might be actually you're just agitated because the worst things in your life have already happened to you, while these people keep on talking about things that haven't happened yet, that might happen, that frighten them. And there's just a big cultural misalignment there, partly just due to class disparities and the prominence that certain classes get over others. So it's a difficult juggling act today, but I can bring to bear all my experience of dealing with class politics at different levels of discussion and really just pour it into a hip-hop aesthetic and translate it into that language, which for me is a lot of fun.
We're getting some... Mark McInnes is adding it to his vinyl collection. I'm just going to... Becky, could you put the
pre-order?
Yeah, the vinyl link. I've got the schedule link in the comments.
I'll put it in the chat to say.
Put it in the chat, and I'll bring that on the screen for people to order it, because there's a few folk. Here's some instant feedback for you. You've got Joe Buchanan. Sounds great. Ben Wrong says banging. You've got the fire emojis for GBH. Mako, shouts to Mako.
GBH, man, like, he's just always been a fucking solid cunt, do you know, whenever you run into him, and like really into, you know, him, Gupsy, just really into lyrics and really into bars and really study lyrics. So when you get a compliment for them, it always has an extra premium on it. Do you know what I mean? Because you know they listen to good shit.
Absolutely loves his hip hop. Also, we got Scheme Hing. I don't know if that's JOE or Jam, but the CCTV are in the house.
Yeah.
The right trips, oh man, I remember them before they had facial hair, man, honestly.
Actually, I interviewed them on Friday, but I got distracted because I started off with Jam, and then JOE, he broadcast live from the Four Corners. And then I just kind of got, you know, the two of them just basically started bullying me. You know, I mean, I lost control with the interview for a bit. But I remember, I think the first time I met them was at the Mog was doing a wee gig at the Hidden Lane.
Yeah.
And I remember them then. Mm-hmm. And I just thought they were shoplifters, man. But it turned out they were big hip hop fans, and both of them just released banging tunes. If you don't know, check out Jay Lee and Jam's new singles. They're absolutely smashing it. Jim Monnins pulled me up for calling you young Darren. Fuck's sake. I'm Jim 61, Govan Hill.
Hi, Jim.
All right, Jim, how's it going, mate? Jim remembers me we'll have vivid memories of me when the Socialist Party still was happy to be associated with me. When I was young and malleable and angry enough that it didn't really matter, except the kind of outward presentation of a furious radical. And I did a lot of stuff with the SSP and the young SSP, and until obviously we all started fucking eating each other and ourselves. Do you know what I mean? As all good socialist collectives like to do. That vinyl link. Could you send it in the private chat, Becky? Because I think it automatically bans a random person sharing a link for some reason.
I actually accidentally said link to vinyl free order anyway.
All right. I should have just did it anyway. I just thought it'd be quicker. Save me sort of interrupting the interview by typing.
I'll do it, man.
But you know what? Question for the audience.
Hey, fancy another one?
Do you want another one?
Right, okay. I think we're going to go for We Run It.
Yes, tune.
A wee snippet of We Run It. Could we get a wee introduction to We Run It?
Can we get an introduction to We Run It that Mark's talking to you?
Oh, sorry, it's because I can't see you and
it's still happening. It's still happening. You just
cool. Yeah, hang on a wee second. We Run It basically is my attempt to actually write an official anthem for the whole Scottish hip hop scene that everybody from every generation and everybody from every style can get behind as a historical document that charts a bit of the history of hip hop and the interplay between hip hop culture and actual proper culture in inverted commas. So it comments on young graffiti artists no getting into the Glasgow School of Art because the people over there didn't understand the graffiti was an art form. And then the irony of the fact that murals now are the big fucking Glasgow centrepiece and that graffiti's been embraced. When in fact, actually, you know, councillors and council leaders for years have been calling graffiti writers vandals and Neds and BAMs. So it's a wee cheeky kind of tongue-in-cheek thing about the Scottish accent, the cringy feelings that some people feel for some reason about it, and really just leaning into that sort of Loki sarcasm, like having the last word type thing with a pure banging beat and some amazing scratches at the end for Crash Slaughter as well.
And it sounds like the most modern tune you've ever made, which is funny. I think that's meant to be sarcastic.
It's like a lead single,
or Darren's trying something new.
Lead single, no swearing. I can write a pop tune if you want me to type of vibe, but actually it's about stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's about stuff.
Hey, got the party crashing, we run it. We run it. Second hand gear, passing for new clothes. Cleaning up the only pair of kicks you owned. Toe to toe, represent your scheme. It was about taking part, not worshipping who sold. Before the days of power cutting two-tone, pioneers got it laying down a smooth road for an art form for poor folk. But every club has seen got a foothold and got bulldozed. The GSA didn't think graffiti was a discipline, so many young graphers said they wouldn't enroll. The irony is twofold. Now they send all the students out to study all the murals. Now authorities buddy us. Now the academics want to study us. Oh, lucky us. You plummy schmucks want 2 minutes of your time? Better put some money up. I never like ballet, opera, poems. I'm being force-fed middle class Holcomb. For the first day I recorded vocals. Nothing else mattered, hip-hop was vocal. Scotland, I've got a proposal. Stop sleeping on us, we're top of the totem.
Everybody's raging, everybody was getting into that there, weren't they?
We can't hear you.
Well, it's because A, I did it with the microphone, and B, I was unmuted as well. So that'll be why. But I was just saying that the reason they're cutting off at the good bit is just because you've got to pre-order the vinyl.
Yeah.
Now the academics want to study us. It's K9 Kev. Shouts to K9 Kev.
Do I come to hello quickly? Lily features on one of the songs. She does a backing vocal on Not Funded by Creative Scotland.
She also recorded it. She pressed all the buttons to record it.
And she was happy to be a kind of studio assistant that night. She was bringing me sweets. She was giving me good
She was
pep
like,
talks.
"You're the talent. You're the talent,
Yeah,
Daddy."
yeah, that's what they say. That's what they say. Right, off you go.
Right away. This is serious.
I think Lily's a star in the making as well. Is she singing? She
Oh.
jumps about us. She's got the diva. She's got the
Singing,
diva.
the whole thing. Both our Waynes have got bands.
Yeah.
One of them's got merch for his band.
It's funny the way kids talk about music now, though, because they talk in all the capitalist language, because to them that's just the normal lexicon in a neoliberal fucking post-apocalypse. Do you know what I mean? So they talk about before they've even wrote a song, they're talking about merch and they're talking about branding, and like it's imprinted in them. That's just normal. And then the music comes after that, you know. So we're trying to get the balance with them by saying, "Aye, that's cool, but let's remember the fucking tunes need to rock, and that's the most important thing."
The music still hasn't come. I mean, it's been 6 months, and they've got T-shirts. So
not good on them.
They all talk like YouTubers. They all talk like Minecraft YouTubers.
Whoa!
My boy just, he says sometimes he just sounds like he's broadcasting permanently on Twitch or something. Do you know what I mean? Like.
I seen you were at St Luke's. Oh, who was it? I think you were supporting Souls of Mischief.
Yep.
You did a video to try and explain to him that you're a rapper or something. Am I getting that right?
What was it?
I think you were on stage and you took a video with the audience to prove to your son that you were actually a rapper.
I took a video. I showed him it when I got home because I hadn't ever played him a song of mine. You know, we were on holiday this year, and like he started listening to like Eminem, and that was just constant in the car, man. Like he was wanting to listen to like Godzilla, and it was the interesting thing was how captivating Eminem at 50 years old is for an 8-year-old child. Do you know what I mean? That was the mad trick. That was just like, oh my god, I can't believe
it. It's always kind of newer stuff. It's just the kind of newer gen.
When I was like, son, you need to listen to this, and I made him a playlist on Spotify with like Brain Damage and all that, and not just classic stuff. Do you know what I mean? And it wasn't grabbing him as much. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, we were just, what was it we were talking about there?
You were trying to show them you're a rapper.
Oh, aye. So at the launch, I thought I would film the audience and then say, I told you I was a rapper, and get the audience to react in the background. So when I came home, I showed him it when he was in his bed. He wasn't really that impressed.
Didn't
care. Well, so who were you supporting that night?
Souls of Mischief.
The name drop.
You call that radio?
We love a name drop. We love a name drop when you call that radio. So what we're talking about the end of the end of Loki. What is, you've supported loads of people over the years. You want to just give us a wee name drop?
Oh man, it's hard because I wasn't always in the best fucking condition. But
it's not about whether you were good or not. It's
whether I can remember who I supported. I supported Royce to 5'9", D12, The Far Side, Ultramagnetic, Cool Keith, obviously Souls of Mischief. I think Leaders of the Underground, maybe. I mean, there's double that. There's double that. I supported Akala 4 nights.
Yeah.
I've done events and stuff with Loki, Professor Green. That's not me deliberately name dropping. Do you know what I mean? But
I told you to name drop.
I've done quite an extensive bunch of support slots, but the problem is, it was at a time before everything was documented on social media, and I don't have the memory to remember because I was probably a bit out my nut on the night. But it's interesting when you do international support slots because, or Rugged Man, actually as well. You get an audience that's there for underground hip hop, but still hasn't really made contact with the local scene. So what you get is an audience that's more receptive than a general audience because they understand the key cornerstones of hip hop. So even if the accent's a bit weird, they recognise your technique, they recognise the way you carry yourself. So it's an interesting challenge doing like a proper golden age hip hop support slot like Souls of Mischief because they people are already primed really to be into proper hip hop.
they recognise.
It's like just listen, it's Spanish hip hop. I love listening to Spanish hip hop. In fact, there's a really good channel on Instagram. I'll hopefully remember it. It'll come back to me. But what they do is they do Spanish versions of. I think the one that had it this week was Warren G. Regulate, but it's it's in Spanish.
Amazing.
So it's like a really good way for learn the language when you're younger. Man, I was a class clown at school saying, "What do I need to learn Spanish for?" Absolutely. I really wish I learned Spanish, man. Everyone speaks English. What a horrible, ignorant.
When you go to Magaluf.
Well, I mean, Canary Islands in January. January's usually only the month I have off. And it's usually warm and I can afford to go to. Then obviously went to Mexico, but listening to Spanish hip hop is great, and it's a good way to pick up. Like Cypress Hill had that album, El Coco, El Loco. For some reason it's still rhymed in Spanish.
Aye, and it's amazing that no matter what language or culture you hear it in, the fundamentals are always the same. Do you know what I mean?
Man.
And that's like that just shows that just shows it as a global phenomenon. You know what I mean? And has been obviously now for 30 odd years, man, at least.
I'm going to play one more. I think we're about an hour. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I've got the one I picked. I wanted to pick I'll Show You Something to Cry About, but there's no way that I could snip that. That's people need to hear that in a wanna. That is a very, that grabs you. An emotional song. So I didn't want to skip that one, but that's an amazing piece of work. So I've actually went for Made in Pollock because you sent me an early copy of that. Maybe, I don't know when that was. Maybe the start of the year, or I don't know. It seems like a while back now.
I sent you the first demos. Maybe like 6 months ago or something.
Yeah. So I've actually played that one a few times, and it still bangs. It's great, man. I just think it's really well written. I just want to give us a wee introduction to that, and I'll play a wee minute of that.
I sound, man. I mean, it just felt like because I was delving into some of the origins of things for me and gone full circle with it, that I had to have something that was specifically about Pollock. And I start the tune kind of tongue in cheek when I'm like, don't know if you guys know, but I'm for Pollock. Do you know what I mean? I don't talk about it a lot. But actually, like as much as a lot of the stories about the difficulties I had are based around Pollock, I thought that there was a way of doing a tune which was kind of nostalgic for people who grew up at a certain time. You know what I mean? At the cusp of the millennium. So I cite a lot of different things that people for that period will remember, like when we all got green bins and we all got double glazing windies because the Tories got out, and what dinner halls were like, and schools, and there'll just be a lot of stuff that people will be nodding along to, you know what I mean? But it's also a wee tribute just to the scheme that I come for, really.
I'm running straight out of Pollock cause it's hostile, full of head honchos, born in a foxhole, raised in a war zone, underneath a burnt out motor in a pothole, playing five-a-side on a pitch of broke bottles, big sovey rings, Bergos, rock posts, bump through the catalogues, flogged to the pawn shops, pound shop, teddy boys talking through their nostrils, sit down if your tall tale's full of plot holes, picked on if you talk low, picked off if you take a wrong tone, gunned down in broad daylight, a one-shotted with a sword, or a tech bill, you should have squared up pronto. Birds chirp, cocks crow, cops groan, eyes in the sky, never off patrol. A gonzo horror show, I'm in the wrong row. That walk, mad drunk, normal. CB radios, drunken candlelight wishes, education courtesy of sky satellite dishes. Rigged lecky meters, frost on thin frames. Tony got the Tories out, we go double glazing windies. Dinner ticket queue, sticker books, nicknames called.
Yeah, you need to pre-order the album.
100%.
Ivory Blacks. I never even finished my question about the Ivory Blacks, Lauren, because we got carried away talking about the legend that Kelvin is, and there's a few people agreeing. See Stacey in the comments agreeing as well about Kelvin. Can you tell us what it was like that first night Ivory Blacks? Because I'm assuming this is before you really knew anyone in the scene, or how did you end up? What happened?
I had turned up to a few open mics. So I done my very first thing was in Maggie Mays in Paisley, which isn't there anymore. And Big Div was doing his North Side EP launch in there. So Blackheart and Homegrown Fan were supporting him. So that was the first time I met what some people who would later come on to be some of my dearest friends in life. Do you know what I mean? Like Marek, for example. I met the Black Cart Boys, Ian, Tank, Colin, who I was really nicked about with for years while I was living in the supported accommodation, or Arkham, as my fans will know it. And basically, then I did the Clutha Vaults open mic night, which is where I first ran into Gasp and a lot of the ER boys and Doonhamer. And then I got invited up on Div's set at Strawberry Fields. We were doing so many gigs then, we were smashing it, and I got heckled, and I ripped the heckler for the stage, and that was when basically I just won the whole scene over. Do you know what I mean? Because I did a 16-bar fucking destruction of this person who was trying to make me look a cunt in front of everybody when I was just a new kid on the block. And so after that, I got my own first set in Ivory Blacks, and that was a real peak for the scene in terms of all the people that were coming out to gigs and the feeling that we were all part of something new and it was a proper community. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because at that time, I mean, so this is before I knew you as well. I was in college. This is how old I am. Trying the internet for the first time in college. Got, what's that, Homer Simpson? Internet, eh? I was like, so is this? I typed in, I think, Pink Floyd lyrics because I was a smoker at that time, and Celtic. I think that's what I typed in. I didn't really know what I was doing. But at that point, I thought I'd, like most people my age, it's a similar story, that I thought I'd invented Scottish hip hop. Started off with American accent. Then I thought, no, I'm going to make it Scottish.
We all did. We all thought.
Obviously, there's loads of stuff before that, by the way. We're not going to, shouts to Two-Tone Committee, Power Cut Productions, we could go on all day. There was loads of stuff. But before internet, it wasn't really a thing. All Time High were just were a few towns away from me as well. But I didn't know.
The thing is, see, once I found out, and it was really, this was Div's influence, because I was still rapping America when I came into contact with Div, and that it was Div that put me on to what nights were happening, and then I would just start travelling myself, or with my bird at the time, and that was the kind of beginning of the realising I'm actually part of a thing that's been going on, and that interested me. I wasn't disappointed that I wasn't inventing it. I liked the idea that, all right, I'm part of a kind of, I've entered this at the lowest level, and if I'm good at this and I stick to this, then I'll get the kind of same respect that maybe somebody like Big Div or the Freestyle Master or Steg or Bose or Defy get just by walking in a room. They don't need to cypher, they don't need to rap. People just treat them with respect.
I liked what you said about those guys representing like the American archetype. So it was like, rather than being like, oh, I need to be like those guys in the States, it's like, no, that's our...
I thought they were cooler, do you know what I mean? No cooler, but I just identified more with this idea of that they have a message to carry and how they are very disciplined and specific about their adherence to proper hip hop. And so it gives you a very clear template of what's expected, and then you can diverge for that, and the more cachet that you get in yourself, you can go your own way with it, and I certainly did that, and I was probably quite challenging for a lot of the artists that were established when I started coming about, because I'm just kind of disruptive by nature, but I always had so much reverence, do you know what I mean? Even my first album, there's a track on it called Rebirth, which is just a big list of shout outs to artists that came before me, do you know what I mean? So that's all been part of my whole style, man, just making sure that people that I respect know that I respect them. Do you know what I mean?
So how long after it was, because when I just googled Scottish rap, what's the best album in Scottish rap, because it was actually my sister's pal. I went, I'm going to do hip hop with a Scottish accent. She was from Edinburgh, and she's like, oh, that's original. And I was like, wait a minute, there's something going on. Yeah. And I googled what's the best Scottish rap album, and it came up Friendly World.
Oh really? Aye. Well,
that was a forum. It was a forum, but it was just a bunch of people agreeing that it was Friendly World. So that was the first proper album I listened to from start to finish, and it blew me away. I was going to say it inspired me to rap, but it actually stopped me rapping because I knew I was nowhere near good enough, and the production that Div done as well was incredible.
And that was when I started coming into contact with BA, and in Friendly World, what you can hear is my level of my frame of reference artistically expanding because of the influence of all these new people around me. So you had the Lucky Me influence. I had a beat for Hudson Mohawk on there before he was even called Hudson Mohawk. Do you know what I mean? Someone did most of the production on it. And then obviously Div was just there to kind of oversee a lot of it. Sace did some contributions to it. But you can hear the influence of other MCs that I'm around, and you can hear my influence on them as well. We really started to cross-pollinate, and that's where the being really came from, was we were all hanging about, we were getting high, we were having these amazing experiences together, and we were really getting a buzz out of like getting into each other's taste in music and why we were into certain things, and we all got the joy and, you know, getting the proverbial aux cable. Back then it would just be CDs, do you know what I mean? You'd be putting them in and playing them and fucking giving your presentation about why the tune is so fucking good, and listen to this and rewind that, listen to that drop. And they were just, honestly, those years, man, do you know what I mean? Like,
and all secretly up in your games based on each other's music as well. Do you know what I mean? Just like, I need to meet that bar that Gaff's just set.
Exactly. Imagine being there when Gasp comes in. Do you know what I mean? With a song that he's written or a verse that he's written, that people in the scene will know, just that listen to his stuff will just know, like, that was like early Gasp. You know what I mean? Because Gasp's style evolved a lot. And imagine what it's like when you're sitting and somebody comes in, or BA, do you know what I mean? And they drop a tune, or they're like, listen to this, and you're sitting listening to it, and you're like, this is fucking amazing. And then you go home and you're like, I want them to have that feeling that I got listening to their tune when they hear my tune. And that's really when a crew is really like firing on all cylinders. Do you know what I mean? The Bucky fucking cut is done in the end, as it does with
you get a good run.
Aye, but I mean, in terms of crews and the impact that hip hop crews have had, I think the Being has probably touched more people in terms of that first contact with the Scottish accent in music, just because we were such a big collective, and there was a time where we were firing out so many tunes. And so even though we never even got round to putting out a proper album, we're like an entity rather than a proper crew, which is what the Being was. It was for an old VHS in a flat we used to party in down in Cessnock called Lendal Place, and it was like a B movie called The Being. It was just this entity, this blob that was just going around fucking just making a mess everywhere.
You're younger than my mate Ben's tape deck. Is that for that way?
Aye. So it's like it was just we were young. We didn't see any limitations. We were just loving life, man.
That's Jay Lee. No Way Back was the first tune he'd ever heard. Scottish hip hop tune. K9 Kev, shouts to K9 Kev, who had some good news last week. I'm glad you're recovering, mate.
Kev, glad to hear it, mate.
He said Loki, speech therapy, and Big Div. And is that you done? Is that you running out of time?
5-10 minutes if you want. You might have Wayne running a bit in the background.
Okay, I'm gonna end it with a question. We'll go back to the full circle to the Creative Scotland thing. How could Creative Scotland be better? How could they do it better? Like, one thing that I do, like you mentioned earlier on about how Sonny Govan are given a bit of money to decide who gets it. That seems like quite a positive way of doing it, where maybe people that are actually doing stuff.
That's them. What they're addressing doing that is a proximity gap culturally between Creative Scotland and the hip hop community. So what they're looking for is a mediator to close that gap, and that is a good temporary fix. But what you really want is somebody like Steg G getting a job at Creative Scotland. Do you know what I mean? And being given a secure income to properly work on and develop. Or somebody like Sace, do you know what I mean? Sace Lockhart, who anybody in the scene or in the wider music industry will know, not only a competent musician of industry standard, but also an educator, also somebody who's mentored a lot of artists that came through. I mean, that's when I met Mog. We went through the Trilect project, me, Dunhamer, Mog, Taj, Emma Gillespie, DC, who maybe some of you won't know, but there was a big trippies where we were getting industry standard EPKs and all that done for us. So it's really that there's people in Creative Scotland who have real deep insight into specific sections of the arts because they come for that. And so you need somebody for the hip hop scene really in on the inside, because there'll be a cross-pollination that occurs where they will just, by virtue of their existence, really educate and enlighten people about the power of hip hop. And that's really how the respect for it starts to grow. And there's always going to be purists who don't want to fuck with institutions, and they're going to be outsiders, and that's their status, and they're happy with it, and that's totally fine. But there are other hip hop artists, I think, that could be supported with the right encouragement. And so, you know, rather than farming out the difficult decisions about who to give the money to, you need to integrate it in.
It's just more democracy. It's like anything. If anything stays the same for long enough, it's going to end up being, in some way either gatekept or it's going to end up being kind of, ruled by a certain few. So it's just about like listening to voices that are, representing different areas of the scene that matter. And a lot of what they do is, here, I've been asked on this, obviously defend them, no. But a lot of what they do is great, so it's about just, I guess, those voices being more heard as well, because they fund a lot of charities, but then some years those charities won't get funding, and some big band will get the funding to make an album, and so you've got to ask yourself, where's the parity there in general? So I think anything that's got more community focus and anything that's more community driven is going to be more representative.
With me, and I talk about this in the album, specifically on a couple of tracks. The hip hop scene, it turned my life around. Because it gave me focus. It was the first genuine literary experience that I'd had, so it gave me more of an interest in writing and being expressive and creative in ways that I didn't feel comfortable to be. And if people start to understand that if they've got all these targets they're trying to hit in terms of engaging people on grounds of literacy, on grounds of confidence and building self-esteem and being part of community harmony, hip hop's a great gateway drug to that, because when people are involved in a hip hop culture, they have a safe space, as it were.
It's folk culture as well. Like it's trad and folk culture, which is a weird thing to say, but it is. Do you know what I mean? So it's like recognizing that those voices are, equally representative for the culture is important.
The culture.
It's interesting, and obviously the single that you released, yes, the injury detail, Celtic Connections, and that's the first time I've ever really thought about that, because obviously I recognise hip hop as folk music, as folk tales, a modern way of telling stories in your own accent. Has Celtic Connections ever dabbled with hip hop at all?
Yeah, there was. Not as an annexed thing. So, like they've had, like you, Mark, if you go to a festival and you've got a tent and you've got a wee bit more free rein. So there used to be a thing called Hazy Recollections that Finlay Napier ran, and he made a point of bringing like acts like Solar Eye, myself, like other people.
Solar Eye did that. Stanley Wood did get an orchestra, I think, once, or Solar Eye. It was Stanley Wood with an orchestra.
Yeah, so there was that, but the question is, there's so many unknown acts at Celtic Connections that are trad acts. So in order for a hip hop act to get legitimacy at a space like that, they have to do so much of the groundwork. They're not getting invited in to show their music. Maybe they get a free gig at the Danny Kyle stage or a wee shot here or there. Hazy Recollections, sadly, was part of the ABC too, so that's gone. And like, so if something, what's replaced it? There isn't that access point for young hip hop artists or even young, artists in general, to interface with something like Celtic Connections unless they meet certain criteria, which they're not always going to. And that's true. Obviously, everything's got, its doors that are hard to open, but like to dismiss one of the main genres of the city in the city that you put the festival on is mental. Do you know what I mean? It's not representative.
Yeah, I wonder if do you think they're dismissing it, or do you think they just don't even know?
It, I mean, it's not about dismissing it. It's about sometimes what they'll do is they'll make sure if they do bring someone in, that it's someone who has some material that conforms to that house style. Yeah. So it's not too challenging for the audience. And that's fine. We all have songs that are more appropriate in certain contexts, and that's an important.
You've all got your Celtic Connections.
But that's important for an artist. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I was actually going to. I just forgot to do it. I forgot to tell my person that's my form filler that's going to help me with the forms to do it. We all agreed that I had a few ideas, and one of them was I'm just going to do a mixture of gyros and Jackal Trades tunes with an orchestra, like you said, appropriate. The songs would be appropriate for it, sort of strip it back a bit and apply for it, but I forgot. So it's another year, and I suppose that's another big problem is you've got to think ahead. So it took me years to figure out festival season starts really early. Mm-hmm. If you've not already,
that's a problem, Mark, because a lot of people that are
you need to be thinking Celtic Connections next year now. No, I mean 2026.
I think now, not saying everybody does hip hop is working class.
Even I don't, and I'm old. What chance has a young person got with my kind of brain?
It's not. You have to have a lot of time on your hands to pre-plan a year ahead for anything, and a lot of people that are doing hip hop don't have that.
No. But that's part of what the skills they need to be taught.
Aye.
You know what I mean? Like how to take things to a professional level.
I know a great university course that can all come to get taught.
Are you plugging a university course?
Yeah.
Go for it. Go for it.
No,
Plug it if you want.
I
Do you
want
do
to-
professional? Do you do form filling? Can I get an HND in filling out a form?
Not quite, no, but we'll certainly support you to.
How can we fix that? How can we fix the fact that I don't like filling out forms, even though I know that it'd be in my interest to fill out a form? I might actually get the money.
Actually, a lot of funding bodies now have a video response. Create Scotland don't. So, like, a lot of funding bodies now have went, if you feel more comfortable talking, we want to be accessible. So, if you can get your argument together, take some notes and talk to us like this.
I've got a camera.
Go here.
I can even change my colours, make it a bit more
exactly,
Scotlandy.
but not
go,
yet.
like
We don't
that.
quite have that yet.
Well, blue, red. Go for red.
That's just actually when it changes. That's very Creative Scotland. Keep it changing.
Very creative. It just shows that I'm creative. I can't work the
I
points.
think this point of talking about forms is a real high point in the discussion generally.
Aye. What does the audience
A real
think about
good-
forms?
Get AI to fill out forms. I actually spoke to someone who remain on. Well, they actually said it in the podcast, but I don't think I should have. I'm going to repeat their name. They used AI to get a Creative Scotland funding application. So
Amazing.
Nice.
We'll
I'll
be
keep that
using
in mind.
AIs to assess the forms soon anyway, and clearly AI's writing some of the fucking poetry, that's for sure.
I think Jim Monaghan is an AI. That's what I heard.
on that bombshell, this shouts Friday, by the way. You're playing a wee gig on Friday as well, a wee warm-up gig for anyone that can't make the 28th. You can come along to the Dream Machine, which is part of the space, which is next to the bars in St Luke's and all of that.
Bam's not welcome. And I'll just put that out there. Bam's not welcome.
Bam's not welcome.
Yep.
And you got this on Friday. It's BYOB. It's a tenner in. At Boxing Day, we've got Gas Doctor, Normal Bucket Kit, Callum Ray, and more at McNeil's.
Callum Ray, bless his heart.
Callum and more to be announced.
And more.
And then, of course, the big one. That's the album launch of all album launches, not funded by Creative Scotland, at Ivory Black.
Like 4 tickets left for that.
No, we added more. We took
added-
some 4 tickets.
No, they sold out. They sold out, so we had to add more. It was Skiddle sold it, but there was some tickets left at Ticket Scotland. So we did a 1-2 buckle my shoe and moved them over. But be quick, this is going to sell out, and I feel like it's been quite good the way that there's been people have had fair warning now. If it's sold out in one night, you'd have a problem because you've got so many people going, "Oh, I didn't know." Well, we're telling you, this is your chance. Are you announcing? Are you wanting to announce who's playing, or are you keeping that under your hat for now?
No, I mean we can announce it now, and we'll do a proper one next week. But for the support, we've got Gasp, who's coming to do this a set similar to what he did at the Samas.
So could you just what do you mean? He has drums now. I don't know anything about this. I just know that he played the Samas. I wasn't there.
I've not seen the set, but he done what I think is probably quite an intelligent move in front of a kind of Sama audience, which is he went on and under one of his personas. Do you know what I mean? Brian the Vampire, and he had Sean Love on drums. So they have a thing projected on a screen, and then he performs with some backing music, but obviously with the added intensity of live drums. And
Shouts to Sean Love. He's an amazing drummer.
Yeah,
he came all the way. He
nice.
played a festival with 1 day's notice, 1 hour practice, and drove about 4 hours to Cumbria to play this really weird festival. And he did a great job. He did a great
And
job.
It's one of those rare metal drummers that can drum across all genres.
Yeah.
That's Gaspy drums, man. I'm sold.
Aye.
And then you're going to come and do a kind of acoustic gyro set, is that right?
Yes. Aye, we're up for it. We're going to do stripped back. So we're going first. So Gas comes in with the drums. And we'll just do it stripped back. We'll probably just do a wee acoustic thing, acoustic guitar, maybe some backing vocals or something. We'll keep it nice, easy to start off. Then Gas with drums. And then what can we expect for your set? Is because obviously I've seen people already asking, are you doing any of the classics or are you just focusing on the new album?
I'll be deciding this week, really. You know, I think I've got an hour at a push. And I think maybe I might split the difference and prioritise new songs that I know I've memorised well, so I don't have any kind of unnecessary pre-show anxiety with lyrics and stuff. And for any of the other ones that I'm not so sure on, I might slot in a couple of wee numbers here and there, just because I know that might get the crowd hyped up. Do you know what I mean? But what I'll do, I'm sure that everybody's going to be have a great night anyway. Do you know what I mean? Just because everybody that's going to be there and just the buzz of being in Ivory Blacks.
It's going to be a good night. And also, actually, Rosie asked me if there was going to be an after party. Aye. But I think she's got friends coming for it. But I was like, I didn't, because it's that time of, there's got so much stuff going on. You don't even know what's the point of organising an after party and then everybody goes home. But Kelvin, I messaged Kelvin. There's a goth nightclub
that's happening right after the gig.
Right after it, so we're allowed to stay, hang about. They'll probably be an hour in between. Maybe I could just put a playlist on or something, or you could put a playlist on, Dan. Play the playlist while they're getting the goth club set up, and then put your black eyeliner on.
And
it's time for.
I am there. Brilliant.
You're going to be there anyway. It's just a case of whether you want to leave.
You're going to be there anyway.
You're going to be there.
Childcare anyway, and we'll probably stay in the tune that night anyway, man. Just because it'll be a celebration.
Get goffed up, man.
Yep.
Goffed up.
Remember, right, thank you very much, Dan. Thank you very much, Becky. Album sounding brilliant. Have a good Christmas. I will maybe see you on Friday, but if not, have a good Christmas. And go and order that album. Pre-order on coffee. Links are all about here somewhere. And I think we'll just finish it off with another wee clip. We'll just go for.
I got the party crashing, we run it. Second hand gear, passing for new clothes. Cleaning up the only pair of kicks you owned. Toe to toe, represent your scheme. It was about taking part, not worshipping who sold. Before the days of power cutting two-tone, pioneers got it laying down a smooth road for an art form for poor folk. But every club has seen got a foothold and got bulldozed. The GSA didn't think graffiti was a discipline, so many young graphers said they wouldn't enroll. The irony is twofold. Now they send all the students out to study all the murals. Now I thought the East buddy us. Now the academics want to study us. Oh, lucky us. You plummy schmucks want 2 minutes of your time. Better put some money up. I never like ballet, opera, poems. I've been force-fed middle class Holcomb. For the first day I recorded vocals. Nothing else mattered, hip-hop was vocal. Scotland, I've got a proposal. Stop sleeping on us, we're top of the totem.
Brilliant stuff. Go and get your last few tickets here from Skiddle. Pre-order the vinyl and receive a digital download before anyone else at Ko-fi.com. Jigsaw Tiger in the house. Hello, looking forward to hearing the new album. It's a banger of an album. Fire emojis for Sev. Great show, amazing tune, says JOE. Great show, says Stuart. Shouts to Big Chris. Shouts to Mako. Shouts to Ripton. Jay Lee. James. Maybe a Celtic Connections Fringe will actually. Somebody has started a Facebook group to do that. And also, big love's not seen Loki since Assembly Rooms. Need to get tickets to Ivory Blacks. Well, you better hurry up, man. The tickets are going. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Remember to like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. And if you want to support the show, then please do so at patreon.com/you call that radio. There was no adverts, no sponsors, no funding during that show because you call that radio is also not sponsored by, not funded by Creative Scotland. So thank you very much. Support the Loki album, get your tickets, pre-order the vinyl, and support You Call That Radio. And I'll see you very soon. Bye.
Systems go! Ignition.
What is that? Oh shit, what is that?
Get your traps.
Who are you fighting?
I have 4 dogs in my backyard. I'm constantly pumping those dogs, man.
It's good that people are getting banned up again because we've not had enough of that. We've not had enough of that. We've not had enough of that. This is a democracy on You Call That Radio. 3, 2, 1.
Do you want weirdo or do you want itchy?
What?